All right, good morning, everyone. This is the regular monthly open meeting of the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board of Directors, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, and it's now 9:30 a.m. We are here live in the boardroom as well as available for viewing on TV6, Zoom, and Granicus. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I see that we have a quorum. Chris, the board secretary, is on vacation today, and so Donna, our treasurer, has volunteered to perform secretarial duties as well. So thank you, Donna. I'd like to start today's meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance, led by Director Kush Bada. Kush.
Good morning, everybody. Please put your right hand on your chest and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay. Thank you, Kush. Okay. It's now time to approve today's agenda. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda? Donna moves, Kush seconds. Thank you. Are there any suggested changes? I will. Okay. Any other suggested changes? Okay. So what I was referring to is we're going to remove agenda item 11.3C from the consent calendar. That is a decision or a recommendation put forth by the Landscape Committee that is going to be appealed. So we'll be removing that. Okay. Any other changes? Okay, I'm looking.
Is that 11?
3C.
3C.
Yes.
Not C3.
Okay. All right. Any other changes? Seeing none. Any objections to approving the agenda with that one change? Seeing none on Zoom and in the room, we'll consider the agenda approved by consent. We're now looking to approve the meeting minutes for two different meetings. Let's address each of them separately. First, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for last month's open board meeting held on May 16th? Ira moves. Andy seconds. Thank you. Any suggested changes to those meeting minutes? Okay. Seeing none, we'll consider them approved by consent. And secondly, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the agenda prep meeting held on June 2nd? Ralph moves. Andy seconds. Thank you. Any suggested changes to those minutes? Okay. Seeing none, we'll consider those approved by consent as well. Thank you all. All right. We're now on to agenda item 5, which is the report of the chair. Today, my remarks will be about Third's property insurance. Over the past couple of years, Third Mutual has been purchasing $675 million worth of property insurance. As I previously mentioned, the Third Board has continued to work with our staff, our attorney, and our insurance brokers in an effort to reduce the cost of Third's property insurance. After performing a risk analysis, our insurance broker has recommended that we purchase $255 million worth of property insurance, which per their assessment would be a 1 in 10,000 year event and is the maximum amount of damage that Third should anticipate experiencing in a wildfire event. Per our attorney, based on the opinions of the expert consultants, the review of those consultants' reports as related to per occurrence coverage, and a thorough examination of both the governing documents and applicable law, the mutual is able to reduce its total insurance coverage amount while still being in compliance with the governing documents requirements. As a result of these assessments, for our June 1st, 2023 annual insurance renewal, Third purchased $255 million worth of property insurance rather than $675 million. Unfortunately, the cost of property insurance for homeowner associations as well as individual homeowners continues to rise. The coverage cost of Third's property insurance has increased over 50% from last year, and as a result, while we have reduced the cost of property insurance by purchasing $255 million instead of $675 million, we are not saving quite as much as we'd hoped. However, had we continued to purchase $675 million worth of property insurance with the increased property insurance coverage cost, Third would have had to spend approximately $3.7 million more for property insurance, which equates to about $50 per man or per month. So we've made some progress, but there's still work to do. The third board continues to work with the United Board to determine if there's are economies of scale that we can put in place to benefit both mutuals by purchasing property insurance together. We're also working with the Community Associations Institute in their efforts to lobby state leaders to assist homeowners associations, which are all struggling to adequately protect their property while the costs of property insurance in California soars. Later in today's meeting, I've asked Dan Yost, our risk manager, to share some information about the drivers that are raising the cost of property insurance. And also at this month's town hall, which is next Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next week, Wednesday, June 28th at 3 p.m. in the Sequoia Ballroom in Clubhouse 2, our insurance broker will be making a presentation about the conditions impacting the cost of property insurance in California. And that completes my remarks for today. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. And now we're moving on to agenda item 6, which we'll have an update from the VMS board. VMS board director Wei Ming Tao is providing today's update. Good morning, Wei Ming.
Good morning, President Laws, the mutual directors, and staff, and my fellow residents. I'm here to report the monthly VMS update. The update on Bright Ideas program. There are 14 suggestions been received today. It's additional 5 suggestions received this month. And the award is issued totaling $1,500 and saving of $23,150 have been issued, and there's no additional award this month. However, one award scheduled for July is a $2,000 award for improvement to water heater procurement, estimated to save more than $25,000 annually. 7 suggestions currently under review. One is fiber optic cable hauled by broadband staff, saving approximately $27,000. Another one is reduce certified mailings, which may save $4,600 annually, and paper reduction effort, which could save $5,300 annually. As you can see, we've continued the pick up the steam for the Bright Ideas program, and this is wonderful. Next. Key performance indicators for vacancy and termination trends. Filling and retaining position within Village remains challenging. Good news is, after March's big jump of 15 resignation, April went down to 6 resignation with 70 vacancies. However, this is still above our goal of 50 vacancies. Currently, the emphasis is on making additional positions available to residents. In order to reduce our turnover and improve efficiencies, we also need to continue on finding ways for a cohesive workplace and achieve a positive culture. We need everyone's help in gaining that needed positive culture here. We always welcome constructive feedback in a way that is respectful and more non-threatening, as this helps us building a continuous improvement culture. Next, please. Detail on resident employment. Current resident employment status. Recreation and Special Event Department has 68 of the 89 part-time employees are resident, which is 76.4%. Security Department, 135 of the 168 ambassadors are resident, 84.4%. New resident employment opportunity. There is a damage restoration part-time admin specialist currently open. You can visit to find out the resident employment opportunities. You can visit the village website. Click career, then residence. Next. Before we get into why there are so many weeds and what are we doing about it, let's take a look of our landscaping trim cycle trends from 2014 to 2022 and our landscape staffing level during that period. As you can see, our trim cycle went from almost 6 cycles in 2014 down to almost just 1 cycle in 2017, and currently is up to 4 trim cycle currently. So as you know, our ground maintenance suffered during this very low trim cycle period. Next. Landscape department staffing from 2014 to 2022. The 2014 staffing was 165, down to 138 in 2017, and back up to 148 currently. For the past few years, we've been implementing many efficiency initiatives to improve the lower, to compensate for the lower employees. And current key initiative to continue to improve our efficiencies includes a new central irrigation control system and continue to convert turf areas to drought-tolerant designs, increase mulch application, and convert all equipment to efficient electric power equipment. Next, please. So, now, why so many weeds and what are we doing about it? The unusual prolonged damp and cool conditions have made the grass remain dormant while the weeds flourished. In addition to work extra hard and to catch up, landscape department has contracted additional workers to help. It will take time to catch up. Please be patient. Next. Update on strategic plan. 2024 staffing budget. In the 6-month strategic objective, it includes evaluating departments' vacant positions and identified reduction in full-time employees to be included in proposed 2024 budget. Completing top-down review of staffing levels to streamline operations and reflect results in proposed 2024 budget. Next. So from February to April, department heads reviewed actual and budgeted staffing level for 2018 to 2022 with executive management to determine vacant positions that can be eliminated and reasonable 2024 staffing level based on 1, efficiencies and process adjustment, and inherent turnover in current job market. Next. As a result, here is the 5-year from 2020 to the proposed 2024 budget staffing level. We went from 751 751 staffing, full-time equivalent staff in 2020 to current proposed budget of 24 of 696, which is a 15 position reduction compared to 2023 and 55 position reduction compared to 2020. Next, please. The new internal audit program. This is exciting. VMS is implementing an internal audit program. There are two types of audit programs. One is the compliance and risk assessment, the traditional internal audit type of work. The other one is effectiveness and efficiency, the operational audit. An audit program procedure focuses on verifying compliance with regulations, assessing organizational risks, evaluating effectiveness, efficiency of standard operating procedures with the goal of protecting organizations' assets and sustainability. Next, please. There were many questions about contract work hours. So here is the contract work hours. Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Only quiet work permitted from 7 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday and from 7 to 9 a.m. on Saturdays. No work permitted on Saturdays, on Sundays, and holidays. Next. Other work hours. CR&R trash collection from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Street sweepers, Monday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Friday from 4 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And that's because early Friday starts allows better cleaning of GRF facility parking lots prior to car and traffic. Landscaping arrives between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m. They began work immediately, starting with uploading equipment and etc. Next. Upcoming events. We are implementing and reviewing a resident bright ideas program since our employee idea program is pretty successful. We think we can come up with, the resident can come up with many good ideas for us to save money. And expanded hours, also we are doing expanded hour at PAC. Open and available for reservation Tuesday, Thursday nights, start Monday, June 26th. Facility hours will be Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Next. There will be another contractor town hall on July 10th, 3 p.m. at Clubhouse 5. The topics include mutual consent process, mutual standards versus variance, city permits, and alteration that do not require mutual consent. Also, there will be another real estate forum on July 19th, 2 p.m. at Clubhouse 5. And it will be interactive Q&A with attendees. This concludes my VMS update. Thank you.
Director Tao, thank you for sharing that information. Regarding part-time employment for residents, can we get maybe a little more definition? I've heard there's a 24-hour rule, 24 hours in a work period.
Siobhan?
Yes, we do limit the number of hours so as not to pay benefits to any part-time employee, resident or non-resident.
But is that a 7-day period, 24 hours? Okay.
That would be my understanding, Andy, but please let me get you the exact information.
Saturday to Saturday or whatever.
Please let me get you the specific information. I'll report back this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Ira, or comments?
More of a comment. I was recently approached by somebody outside the village that applied for a particular part-time job and was turned down, rightfully so, by her inability to set up tables by herself. Not a problem. But the other problem that she talked to me about was that when asked, whoever she talked to, About any other positions, none were offered. And I was wondering if that's the way things are done. If, in my opinion, that if there's an opening, and I don't know if there is or isn't, that would fit the skill set of the person that would be turned down for one job, perhaps fitting them into something else would be a better thing to do than saying, well, we don't know. Well, that's all.
Director Lewis, we often do that, especially with the recreation gate ambassador positions. But let me follow up and see why that did not occur.
Thank you for your feedback. Great.
Any others? Seeing none, I had a couple. So these operational audits that are going to be started, are they going to be performed by in-house staff?
We are hiring an in-house staff member, that's correct. It's been budgeted for over a year. We've had difficulty finding suitable candidates, and then suddenly we've started seeing an uptick in the quality of our applicants. So we got everything put together, all the procedures and so forth, and we're ready to roll as soon as we get a candidate,
Okay.
and we're interviewing later this week.
Okay, so this would be like an independent person, not a part of other organizations?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. And then I noticed contractors need to be quiet until 8 a.m., yet staff can start being noisy at 7 a.m. Why is that?
I had the same question. I will have to look into the history and get back to you.
Okay, all right, and yeah, just want to be fair. All right, great, that was all I had. Any final questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, thank you again,
Thank
Wayne,
you.
for the detailed presentation. Appreciate that. We'll now move on to agenda item 7, which is our open forum. At this time, members may address the Board of Directors regarding items within the jurisdiction of this Board of Directors and that are not on the agenda. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted to this open forum to 30 minutes, and each member is asked to speak. Not 30. 30. I said that? Did I say that again? 30 minutes instead of 3? Okay, maybe it's a Freudian slip, I don't know. All right, let me say that over again. The board reserves the right to limit the total amount of time allotted for the open forum to 30 minutes. Each member is asked to speak for no more than 3 minutes. A member may speak only once during the forum, and speakers may not give their time to other people. Members not in the boardroom can also share their comments by joining this meeting via Zoom or by emailing your comments to meeting@vmsinc.org to have your meeting read during this open forum, should time permit. Michaela, Paul, any requests by members to speak?
Yes. First member is Chris Collins.
Good morning, Ms. Collins.
Good morning. Chris Collins, 3306Q, and I'm here with an update on the work of the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village, which is on behalf of residents who are experiencing temporary financial emergency. New fall prevention program. Don't become a statistic. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, every second of every day, an older adult suffers a fall in the United States. Falls in Laguna Woods are particularly commonplace. Falls are the biggest reason why EMTs are called, and recent review of ambulance calls to Memorial Care Saddleback Medical Center revealed that approximately half of the ambulance calls are due to falls. But while commonplace, falls can result in serious harm both medically and financially. Falls are the key cause of fatal injury and the most common causes of hospital admissions among older adults. Beginning this July, to ensure residents don't become a statistic, the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village is partnering with Memorial Care Saddleback Medical Center to provide fall prevention classes free of charge right here in the village at Clubhouse 2, with medical center staff leading the sessions. The sessions will focus on different aspects of fall prevention, incorporating chair exercises, stretches, and strengthening to improve strength and stability. The program will be offered as 1-month segments with 3 one-hour sessions each month. And then they're going to be on Wednesdays from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. in each of the following months, July, August, and September. Residents can register for a single month session on ActiveNet. Or you can go to Clubhouse 2 or the Recreation Center office. Registration for July 5th, 12th, and 19th program began on June 1st, and space is limited. Workout clothes, tennis shoes are recommended. If you have any questions, please contact the foundation at 949-268-2246 or the foundation at comline.com. And for more information about the foundation, please go to our website, which is thefoundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org. Please note that donations can always be made using PayPal on the foundation website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Richard Rule.
Greetings, Board. Mark and the third Mitchell. Connie Cabal has sent pictures of my main line blockage in 2134 on May 20th. The pictures are very dramatic because I was due at a memorial that day, but I had a virus, so I stayed home. Oh, thank you, Lord, because I bailed about 75 gallons of water off my wood floors of my remodel, which is a remodel of $250,000, valuing my unit at about $550,000. The mainline blockage took 3 hours by the plumber. I'm going to leave with you the work order, and he had the long snake, couldn't get to it. And my pictures show exactly where Connie Cabal is supposed to have these pictures on your screen, possibly. The mainline blockage was down at the bottom of the crawl hole where the snake couldn't get to. So here's the water. Oh, I bailed 15 buckets of 5 gallons of water over the wall in an hour and a half. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. But I saved my own unit. I saved my own unit, and I didn't have to move out. The problem is the 520 blockage is not the first. I'm going to pass around 617 of 19, Unit A, blockage. Also on 22018, 2134A, blockage. My side of the building is all remodels. 8 units, my side is 4 units, Q, N, they're all remodels. And here's a leak in Q in 2023. The reason I'm here is pretty obvious. Something's coming. If we don't get the mainline blockage down in the crawl hole fixed, there will be a unit that will be flooded, and it will be $25,000 to $100,000. My unit is over $250,000, real wood floors, nice. I can't move out because I'm sensitive, so I did the work myself, hired my cleaning lady, and the plumber Rudy was excellent. We saved my unit. So all I'm asking you to do is look at these and possibly do something. My last statement is thank you for the insurance. Good news on the insurance. That was very nice. That was good news, and most people don't say thank you, but I'll be the first. That was amazing.
Thank you, too. Thanks.
Next speaker is, Phyllis Waite.
Hello, Phyllis Waite, 3428A. I believe this is probably most appropriate, the majority of this discussed on June 27th at your 9:30 meeting, where you're going to go over the compliance revisions, things like that. What I would like to know is who do I communicate and put information in their hands before that so that they're a little bit prepared, probably Mark, I don't know. Anyway, I'm probably what Kurt calls a frequent flyer. You guys have heard from me many times, but what I would like is for all noise nuisance things, chimes, fountains, whatever, to be only allowed when all the residents that can hear them sign off. And you guys have plenty of forms for this. You have everything in place to do this. I'm aware because I've used them. However, when a resident goes all the way to the city above and beyond compliance and is tenacious enough to get a decibel reading on the fountain, the noise, and what have you, and it's approved by the city, then Casey takes it from there. So I think anything short of having something where the residents have to approve it is not going to work, because I think Casey's hands are tied, and he can only send a letter. This is a copy of the letter that was sent to the resident that has the fountain, and I'm going to leave these with you, I guess. The fountain is 7 feet from my balcony and can easily be heard inside my home. She received a letter that was very good from Casey that says, however, we would like to encourage you to continue to be mindful of the noise emanating, da-da-da-da. But she's aware that she can have noise until 10 o'clock. Well, at whose expense? So I think anything short, because this is all appropriate and the best he can do. So I think anything short of having, just like the wind chimes, and you've got something in the multi-story buildings that says no water fountains or whatever. I'm in a multi-story building. I am 2 feet, and I do want to give you guys these. Where my balcony.
Yeah, you're better off just staying there. We'll give them to us later. Give them to us later. Your time's running low.
Give them to them. Anyway, I have a real clear picture, and Casey and the people at compliance continue to tell me, you have to get a witness, you have to get a witness, you have to call security, you have to call security. And poor things, anyway, I do. And they came out as recent as 2 weeks ago, and the guy said, yeah, I can hear it in your house. It depends on the background noise and how high she has it up. There's a lot of factors, and everybody's doing the best they can. She wants her damn fountain. I clearly want the peace and quiet back on my balcony. And for every other person, and again, we'll talk about this more, I guess, on the 27th, but I want to know who to send the recording to. I'm not going to play it for you. My time's up. But I have a really clear recording from last night of how loud the sound is, straight up.
Okay.
So who do I send things to?
We'll address that shortly.
Oh, thank you.
Next.
We have to get a rule with this, guys.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Robert Stace.
Good morning, Board. Mark. I want to first start by saying you're doing, as new members, you're doing such a superb job over the previous board. You're doing a wonderful job. When I've contacted board members, they've been responsive. So, and also the CEO, I think, has done a wonderful job. So I'm very appreciative of all your effort. My complaint is, and I'm very annoyed. I have an elderly lady with a dying husband in my building. They have an old Suburban. He finally had passed away in the building. So they would move his Suburban, from time to time. This pathetic security officer, they moved it, it was on via Mariposa. I walked up to him when he was going to write the citation. I said, they're moving the car, it's legally licensed, it's registered in the village, it's insured. Well, it's abandoned. I said, you're an idiot. It's not abandoned. They move it all the time. I see it. And he went ahead and wrote the ticket. He says, well, they have plastic containers in the back of the Suburban. What the hell does that have to do with anything? Nothing. Yet there's a Ford van that these two ladies own, they own two of them, that will sit for a month and a half at a time, And this guy says, oh, we can't do that one. That's the ladies that trim the dogs. We can't cite that one. It has no markings on it, no RF sticker, nothing. So I'm just angry. The poor woman has had to go to hearings. They finally gave her a fine. She gave the car to her relatives. I moved the car for her. It was moved in compliance all the time. And this low-life security that needs to be fired cited her. There's no excuse for this abuse. It's absolute abuse. She's dealing with a dying husband, and she's a slight woman, and she's moving the car. She has her car in the building. And it was just horrible how she was treated. She contacted the captain on security. It's lousy that this security person would cite this person when I told him before he cited. I saw the car moved. Her son-in-law moved it 2 days before onto the street. They parked it on the street. They parked it in the cul-de-sac. It was moved exactly as it was. Well, we see cobwebs. It's abandoned. I said, it's not abandoned. What are you going to do about this guy? He's a menace. To treat this poor widow like this is just astonishing. And I think the board should be ashamed of that department. Absolutely ashamed to this treatment of an elderly person here in the village dealing with her dying husband. It's pathetic.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
We have
Make a
two.
comment?
Oh.
Not yet?
Thank you.
We have two members who sent in letters, so I'll go ahead and read those right now. The first one's from Teresa Kennedy. He stated, "Directors, thank you for volunteering to serve on the board. I know it takes a good amount of your time, and it's appreciated. I attended the ACSC meeting on June 12th, 2023, to request assistance with an alteration issue. The statement I made to the committee with attachments presented to that committee is attached to this email for the board. My request was that the committee ask staff to rescind the separate demo permit that Manor Alterations made me do for a bathroom renovation. A decision was not reached that day on my request. While I understand the staff and committee chair are still working on the issue, I feel this need to appeal to the board is currently warranted. I am worried that all the back and forth between the HOA staff and city building department regarding my permit issues, and now some personal issues, will cause additional delays and require an extension to the 6-month time frame in which to complete work. Therefore, please approve an extension for 3 months today. In addition to the request, I appeal to the board to act directly and with no further delay to request Manor Alteration staff to cancel the demo permit I was compelled to complete on March 23rd. It should not have been required for my scope of work and should be rescinded. As you consider this, please know that since the ACSC meeting, I have received an opinion that confirms my scope of work fits the definition of renovation, not demolition, from Alicia Lewis of AQMD, Supervising Air Quality Inspector. My last comment is to offer some perspective to other mutual members who may be thinking of making minor improvements to your unit. Be prepared for the paperwork fees. The separate demolition consent form carries a $50 fee. Then it adds a $190 demolition fee at the city level for your permit to be issued, all in addition to the standard fee based on type of work or valuation. Easy for the investors who buy and sell units here for a profit, not so easy for those living here and on fixed incomes. Thank you for your consideration." And the last one is from Paul Klein. And he stated, "To whom it may concern, I recently purchased an EV that will charge at the rate of 150 kilowatts per hour. The chargers located at Town Center deliver only a third of that charge, therefore requiring 3 times the charging time. I would like to suggest that the Electrify America charging stations, which can deliver 150, be installed next to the existing chargers in order to reduce the time needed to fully charge the car. Thank you for considering the addition of faster charging stations." And that is all for open forum.
Thank you, Michaela. All right. Any board members have any questions and comments? I see Jules' hand up and SK, so we'll start with the two of you. Jules, why don't you go first?
Yes, with respect to Robert's comment, this reflects the real problem we have with our security and compliance department. It has to do with what they think their job is. They think their job is to write tickets and prosecute. Their actual, when you talk about, for example, the security or cops, their job really, and security's job really, is keeping the peace, maintaining security and peace. And they don't get it. And they really have to be educated. For example, well, I don't want to go into the examples now. I just want Robert to know that he is not the only one that considers this to be a problem. We really should talk about it next week. I agree. Robert, give me a ring when you get a chance, and I'll explain it further. Thank you for bringing up the subject because, well, I've said enough. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jules. SK, you had a comment or question?
Yes, Bob, thank you for bringing that issue. Unfortunately, I was voted out at the traffic hearing. That issue was brought up as a vehicle used for storage, and I didn't feel that was storage, a vehicle she used for storage. So I vote against the penalty, but I was voted out at that meeting. But anyway, the way I think security people act is to serve residents, not try to find a violate. And I felt that was very, very evident of the security people's attitude and thinking. And thank you, Bob, and we will address that in the future. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other comments, questions from board members? All right. I'll just kind of, Mr. Rule, I have your information. We will definitely look into it. We're working with our maintenance and construction team. Ms. Waite, I'm the person, Third Mutual at LagunaWoodsVillage.com. I am the chair of the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee that you referred to, and be happy to talk about this next week. So please feel free to share that with me. I look forward to hearing it. Rumor has it won't be tough. Mr. Stace, as heard, will look into the situation you raised. So it sounds like SK and others are already working with you on that. Ms. Kennedy, I know Mr. Cook, Director Cook, is working on the whole demolition thing that's being talked about. Just a decision hasn't been made yet, correct?
That's correct. And also about the extension, you can simply go into alterations and ask for the extension. Doesn't need to be a board process.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then Mr. Klein, the request is for a new charging station. You know, it's more a GRF related issue than not, but so we'll make sure that your email goes to GRF. But we'll also keep that in mind as Third Mutual looks into EV charging as it periodically discusses. Thank you. That's all I had. Any final? Oh, Mr. Horton wanted to say something?
Yes, if I may respond to Ms. Kennedy's letter that she presented. Demolition versus renovation. The key issue that was missing in the presentation of her letter is that we have the AQMD rule of 1403, which is for the removal of hazardous material. And manor alterations doesn't have, you know, as the spirit of the way the document is drawn up is we use the word demolition, but it is actually documented for the removal of hazardous materials. And so although Ms. Kennedy was not doing a demolition, nor was she charged for demolition, it was just simply for us to document that paperwork to go to the city for the AQMD, because regardless of anything, she's required to remove hazardous material appropriately through the AQMD. And that is the larger issue here is that we're keeping it safe for all of the residents. because she's in a condominium. And I noticed in that email, although I would also like to state, I do not agree with the expensive fees that the AQMD requires us for the testing and the removal of those hazardous materials, as anyone that has done a renovation or a demolition here has experienced, because it is very costly. We are required to follow the rules of the California state law and the AQMD, and that rule very, very clearly states if we are condominiums, as we are designated condominiums, she must remove that material in a renovation or a demolition in a safe, expeditious manner and non-contaminating to the residents. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it. Any final comments, questions?
Well, one for what he just said is maybe we need to change the title to
AQMD.
include both words so that it isn't demolition only.
That might help.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cook. I already wrote that down in my notes to address that. Thank you.
That might help. Good, thanks. All right, one last look around. Okay, thank you. We're now moving on to agenda item number 9. As mentioned during my chair remarks, I've asked Dan Yost, our risk manager, to speak to us today about the significant increases in property insurance costs this year. Dan, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, this morning I want to talk about property insurance and the property insurance marketplace in general over the past 5 to 6 years, how this corresponds to third and its recent renewal, and why property insurance premiums continue to rise. I have a presentation with a few slides. If we look at the first slide, it's pretty busy, but we can go over this. The main point I want to make in this slide here is that insurance carriers and the insurance carriers with Third Laguna Hills Mutual, they're global companies, and they have national and global companies, and they have national and global exposures. So you can see from here, 2017 to 2021 was one of the worst loss history runs for property insurance companies. And from the stat here, there's been over $500 billion of property insurance losses during this time. That corresponds to the increases. This was, but before this time, it was considered a soft market where Third Laguna Hills Mutual had one insurance company. Renewals were pretty flat and times were pretty good, where you would just renew your insurance company for the full value that you wanted to with one insurance company and you would move on. That's not the case anymore. You have, roughly 30 insurance companies on this new renewal. So those times are gone. If I look over to the chart, you can see that these losses, these national exposure losses, you have wildfires in the west, you have hurricanes in the south and southeast. These all combine with total losses with the insurance carriers over this 5 to 6 year span. And I want to hone in on California. You can see that there's wildfires throughout California in these 5 years that they're shown here, 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. 2020 was one of the worst years for wildfires. And if we look at just 2018 alone, that was the Camp Fire. And that destroyed over 18,000 structures, which it was the city of Paradise. So pretty notable disasters, and that's what's affecting these premium increases. So now we get to 2022. If we go to the next slide, and at the end of 2021, we started seeing market conditions that it looked like it was going to get better, where I was reading reports that, hey, the light's in the tunnel, more insurance companies are going to come back and insure. Well, and then here comes 2022, and that didn't happen. 2022 proved to be the ultimate breaking point for these insurance carriers. You can see here that there was over 18 $1 billion losses. Those 18 losses are shown on the map here, and the biggest one being Hurricane Ian, which alone was over $100 billion. And Hurricane Ian is down there in Florida, which came in on the east side of Florida there. And of course, this continued to lead to rises in property insurance premiums and loss of capacity from the carriers. So how does this equate to Third Laguna Hills Mutual? We'll go to the next slide. With these exposures that these insurance companies are looking at, and then kind of the unique features of Third with the wilderness area. There's no hiding the fact that there is a wilderness area, back in behind Third Laguna Hills Mutual there. Insurance companies are aware of that. So with those, unique features of third, it's a little bit harder to find insurance companies, once again in this hard market, and then looking at the property itself. And that continues to rise premiums in itself and reduces capacity. If we look at this chart here from 2018 to 2023, you can see that, and we have the years here, these are the year renewals of property insurance, the premium for property insurance, coverage amounts, and then the value, the statement of values of the community. Not the book value, but the replacement value. So you can see in 2018, before the hard market, premiums were at $641,000, and that's not a misprint. That's how much premiums were. If we fast forward to 2022, it was at its height of about $7.3 million in premium for coverage of $675 million. Now, we go down to 2023 in this recent renewal, and we see here that the premium was $6.5 million. Well, we're talking about increases in rates. How come property insurance isn't higher? Well, through the advice of the broker, and what they issued was a probable maximum loss study, and I'll talk about that in a second. The amount of $255 million for coverage for third was recommended to be used. Lower coverage, less premium. So if we get to the next slide, it talks about the probable maximum loss for a third. The insurance broker used a third-party company called Risk Management Solutions to run a probable maximum loss study, which basically is modeling for wildfire. Wildfire is one of the most significant types of losses that can occur in this community. They ran this modeling based off of all the building locations, where they're at, the wildfire area, and came up with a total 1 in 10,000 year event, the most significant event that could occur, and that came back at $255 million. And that is the recommended coverage for Third Laguna Hills Mutual. If we go to the next slide, now we have our model in place, $255 million. We're going to, rely on that broker to go forward and keep doing that risk modeling for us for these renewals. Next steps ahead, we're looking to combine coverage with United Mutual. We can look at that for economies of scale. And then we can also continue our risk mitigation efforts, the fire breaks. We have extended the fire break from 30 feet and we're going out to 100 feet. If we didn't do these types of mitigation efforts, finding insurance carriers would be that much harder. So we want to continue with those risk mitigation efforts. We want to work with CAI, Community Association Institute, and state leaders. They're very aware of what's going on with HOAs and the property insurance market. And then risk retention, which I talked about, using that broker, doing that analysis, and finding that proper limit of insurance to reduce that premium for third. So that's it for my presentation for today. I can take questions at this point.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Any questions, comments from members of the board? Okay. It looks like not. I think we've kind of heard from you a time or two before.
Okay.
So probably have it memorized by now. Thank you. Are there any comments from any members? Okay. Great. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate for your help and the whole last year working with you and getting this down. Appreciate it.
Thank you
very much. All right, moving on to agenda item 10, the CEO report. Siobhan, what have you got for us today?
Thank you, President Laws, honorable members of the board. This morning, I would like to introduce you to our recent Employee Excellence Awards winners and encourage you the next time you see them to thank them for their efforts and their outstanding performance. The awards are presented in the spring and fall, and they highlight outstanding employees who demonstrate excellent customer service, achieve great results on projects, and regularly go above and beyond their job duties. These are professionals who serve residents, exceed expectations, and make a positive impact on the village living experience. It's my privilege to recognize the two employees sitting next to me right now. Michaela and Paul are the winners from our CEO's office. They are our corporate secretaries, as you all know. They manage the village governance function with efficiency and expertise, work flawlessly as a team to get the job done, no matter what challenges arise. Their flexibility, dependability, and positive attitude keep this critical function running smoothly, and for that, we are all appreciative. Mandy Webb was recognized in financial services. Mandy assists residents with delinquent assessments. For each resident, Mandy takes a personal interest in their specific situation, making sure the resident understands what is expected. Each resident feels heard and respected throughout the process. Mandy has helped many residents bring accounts current while turning difficult situations into positive experiences. Mandy has a unique gift, and we appreciate her efforts. In general services, we recognize John Sanchez, who is a transportation coordinator. John is a great example to other transportation employees on what it means to be a team player. He is always considering what transportation needs to keep operations moving smoothly. He can drive a fixed route bus when a driver is not available. He often fills in on weekends if a scheduler or other coworker needs time off, and he trains our new drivers. A team of employees were recognized in the Human Resources Department. Gabby, Nicole, and Marcy demonstrate outstanding performance and excellent customer service. Gabby showed great diligence in implementing the new employee health insurance program. Nicole provides excellence in obtaining candidates to fill vacant positions in a timely manner, and we've seen some outstanding recent new hires, and we're very thankful for that. Marcy demonstrates excellence in managing the team in support of the employees and HR operations. Our Information Services Department also recognized the team of outstanding employees. Timothy, Daniel, Joshua, Grant, and their manager, John, completed network installation for new office suites within 3 weeks. They activated, tested, and had computer and phone ports ready for new employees to connect in the new offices. They assembled and configured computers following the move to ensure network access and the availability of critical applications within a few hours, helping to make our move go smoothly. Landscaping recognized Jose Vargas, a foreman, and George Munoz, a small equipment mechanic. Jose is a 24-year employee who runs one of the most efficient crews. He has outstanding rapport with our residents, and his detailed tracking of events is always on time and flawless. George was proactive in streamlining small equipment inventory process and is securing quotes on the required electrical equipment and securing AQMD rebates. Lori Chavarria was recognized by the Maintenance and Construction Department. Lori has a great commitment to providing excellent customer service. She prepares the annual budget, tracks expenditures, and trains new employees on the budgeting system. Lori has taken on new responsibilities, including evaluating and assessing responsibility for reimbursements, and is the point of contact on issues elevated to the board members and to the CEO's office. Mark Weiss was recognized in Media and Communications. Mark makes sure Village Television is operating at full efficiency. He directs and edits This Day and troubleshoots technical issues as they arise. Mark's efforts are critical in providing residents with entertaining movies, board meeting coverage, the This Day program, and a multitude of programs broadcast on the channel. Recreation recognized 3 employees. Gail Ford, golf shop coordinator, for her dedication to customer service and her amazing organizational abilities, which enhance not only golf operations, but now the garden center operations as well. Renee Anderson is the PAC coordinator who kept the PAC running when her supervisor departed and is an asset to her new supervisor. Shun Ong, Clubhouse 2 and 7 coordinator, kept the clubhouses running smoothly when her supervisor promoted to a new role. And lastly, but not leastly, Kyle Bellinger, Security Supervisor 1, was recognized in security. Kyle looks for ways to improve processes to enhance safety, efficiency, and productivity. He is helpful in researching data and obtaining information needed to support services and projects. He has excellent communication skills and has received many commendations for his high level of customer service. And again, I hope you will join me in thanking these employees for the jobs they do each and every day. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us all. And I know I work closely with Michaela and Paul, always asking them to do special things for me, and they always do it really quickly. So special thanks from me. Thank you. All right, we're now on agenda item number 11, the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended for action by committees and will be enacted by the board by one motion. Can I get a motion to approve today's consent calendar?
So moved.
Jim moves, Ira seconds. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments regarding the consent calendar? Okay. Any objections to approving the consent calendar? Okay. All right. Seeing none, we'll consider the consent calendar approved as by consent. And now we're up to agenda item number 12, which is unfinished business. Agenda item 12A is for the board to entertain a motion to approve revised architectural standard number 4 for air conditioning units and heat pumps. These updates were suggested by the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee, otherwise known as ACSC. Last month, this board approved these changes for 28-day member review and comment. So today we'll be voting as to whether or not to approve these changes for implementation. Now, first, I'd like Donna to read the resolution for us, if you would.
Okay. Whereas the Architectural Controls and Standards Committee recognizes the need to amend standards and create new standards as necessary, and whereas the Architectural Control and Standards Committee recognizes the need to revise Standard 4 air conditioning units / heat pumps, now therefore be it resolved June 20th, 2023, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby adopts Standard 4 air conditioning units / heat pumps as attached to the official meeting minutes, and resolve further that Resolution 03-2323, adopted March 21, 23, is hereby superseded in its entirety and no longer in effect. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution as written.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Can I get a motion to approve the revised architectural standard before
So
we talk
moved.
about it? Jim moves, Ira seconds. Okay, sorry, Kush, I'll look your way next time. Any questions and comments from members of the board? All right, I see none. Any questions, comments from members of our third mutual? Okay. All right, I think it's time to vote. We're going to vote electronically, try and give that a shot? All right. Should have asked that earlier.
SK and Jules, can you message Zoom your vote?
Okay, Paul, we're waiting for it to come up for us, just letting you know. Whoever we're waiting to come up for us.
No, we're all the same right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody's got it yet.
Yeah, we don't have anything we don't have that little pop-up to vote.
Maybe we should just do it manually.
We can. You have to do that with all of us? All right. Okay.
Thank you, SK. We have your vote. Jules, if you can message your vote as well.
Isn't technology wonderful? Okay, still waiting to hear from Jules. So Jules, if you're there, if you can either say something or chat with Michaela via Zoom.
Maybe he's not there.
Okay, he may have stepped out. So for now, let's just assume he's abstaining since we don't see as a vote. 9 approved. 0 against, and 1 abstention. Okay. Thank you. So this passes. Yeah. All right. Moving on to agenda item 12B. It's for the board to entertain a motion to approve a legal fee for a recordable exclusive use of common area revocable license agreement for variances on common areas outside of a manor. These updates were also suggested by the ACSC. Last month, this board approved to put these changes on 28-day member review and comment. So today we'll be voting as to whether or not to approve these changes for implementation. Again, Donna, could you please read the resolution for us?
Whereas approval of variances for the use of common areas that extend beyond the original floor plan and that meet the requirements of Civil Code Section 4600 requires the execution and recordation of a recordable exclusive use of common area revocable license, and whereas the required agreement should be prepared by the mutual's legal counsel to ensure protection of the mutual's interest. Now therefore be it resolved, June 20th, 2023, that the board hereby adopts a flat legal fee of $750 for the preparation of these agreements as a pass-through charge to the mutual's legal team, and resolve further the processing of agreements for all other approved variances, including exclusive use common area as recognized within the footprint of the property, will utilize a council-prepared and approved boilerplate form at no additional charge to the member, and resolve further the current variance application fee in the amount of $150, which includes the preparation of the boilerplate agreement, remains as adopted under the most current alteration fee schedule. And resolve further, the adopted legal fee for the preparation of the recordable exclusive use of common area revocable license agreement in the amount of $750 will be in addition to the adopted variance application fee and is hereby added to the alteration fee schedule. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the resolution.
Okay, great. Thanks again. Can I get a motion to approve this new legal fee?
So moved.
Jim moves. Kush seconds. Yeah, great. Any questions and comments from members of the board? All right. Any questions, comments from any members? All right. It's now time to vote again. Again, this is to vote to approve this legal fee going forward.
Mark, if I may make one short little comment?
Sure.
So, assuming this passes, I'm hoping to see in alterations an easy-to-read list for the members of what is defined as what, so they know up front what fees they're going to have, just in a little bit more clarity than there is right now. With regards to what would fall under, some examples, these type of fees. So there isn't any surprises for them.
Okay.
Because with this, there could be a $900.
Yeah, it's set as the priority to disclose this immediately before they even start much of the process.
Great, thanks. And are you on the ACSC, Ira? Yes. Good, great. Then you can help drive that through that committee. Thanks. All right. Sorry, missed the vote.
Passed, let me check here,
802.
8-0.
8-0 and then
With one abstention.
One abstention?
Yes.
Probably two if Jules, or I don't know what we
Yeah.
do with Jules having stepped out, whether he's abstaining or just leave it at 0. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this new fee is passed. Thanks, board. I think that'll help our members in the long run. And our final item of unfinished business, agenda item 12C, is for the board to entertain a motion to approve an update to Third's appeal policy. These updates were suggested by the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee and were suggested to allow anyone who disagrees with a decision or recommendation of less than the full board to be able to appeal that decision to the full board for reconsideration. The current process allows for staff to, in many cases, determine if an appeal should be heard, and we're looking to make this simpler and remove staff from that decision. Last month, the board approved these changes for 28-day member review and comment, so today we'll be voting as to whether or not to approve these changes for implementation. And so we'll start this by asking Donna to read the resolution for us.
Whereas from time to time, resident members seek approval from the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board of Directors on many matters of corporate business by way of the committee structure for review of a question that will ultimately be determined by the board. And whereas such committees forward recommendations regarding members' requests to the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board for consideration, and if the proposed request is disapproved, then such decision is subject to appeal to the Third Laguna Hills Mutual Board by the mutual member. Now, therefore, be it resolved, June 20th, 2023, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby establishes and adopts the attached appeal policy pertaining to the rights of members to appeal decisions of committees of the board and is applicable by the board regarding certain corporate business for this corporation. And resolve further, Resolution 03-19-79, adopted August 20th, 2019, is hereby superseded in its entirety and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are directed on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution.
Great. Thank you, Donna. And it looks like Kush is jumping ahead. He is moving to approve the revised appeal policy before we discuss it. So Kush has moved. Can I get a second? I'll second. I can do that. Any comments, questions on this one before we vote on it? Okay, we talked about it before. Should make things easier for our members. Michaela, any member comments? Okay, great. Seeing no comments, I can't see Zoom, so I'm expecting you'll jump in and tell me. Now it's time for us to vote. All right, I'm assuming Jules is still stepped away, so passes 9-0-0 at this time. Okay, great. Thanks, board. We will move on to agenda item 13, which is new business. Agenda item 13A is for the board to entertain a motion to approve a reenactment. I'm not really sure what that word's all about. Keep thinking of a sub-Civil War or something going on. Reenactment of Architectural Standard 41A, previously Standard 45, for solar panels on two-story buildings. These updates were suggested by the ACSC, and today we'll be voting as to whether or not to submit this reenacted standard forward for 28-day member review and comment. Does anyone from staff have any opening comments regarding this for us? Okay. Perhaps not. Okay. And can I get a motion to approve this reenacted standard for 28-day? Ira moves, Jim seconds. Any questions or comments from the board? Jim?
Comment, isn't this the one that we got some information from our attorney? Item, was it 1.7?
Something like that, 714, I don't know.
Anyway, it appears that we might want to take that out of it because it conflicts with the state law. I'm trying to find it in front of me.
And while you're looking, I had some questions, and I'm not sure if there's somebody who might be able to answer my questions or comments. So while Jim's looking for that, so 2.19 mentions that the consent processing time will be completed in 45 days. What if it's not?
It's not.
Okay, Bart wants to jump in there and help you out.
If it's not, it's considered approved.
Well, that's what I thought, but it should say that.
My apologies for that, but that is a state requirement to address the request.
Okay.
That number is there, as Jim mentioned. If it is not acted upon within that time, that it is automatically approved. Our approval process is targeted to be done within 1 work week. So we will not need to go all the way to the extreme, but that needs to be there as a reminder for everyone, including staff, that we need to address those requests in a timely basis.
Okay, and I would just ask then maybe or it will be automatically approved, just be added, just to also remind staff that of the importance of that. On 3.1, sorry, Jim, I'm going to keep going since I had several questions. 3.1. it talks about each resident is allocated an equal percentage of available roof space. That should probably be each manor or something like that, because there may be multiple residents in a manor. If there are 8 residents in a building, for instance, an example. So again, that should probably be changed to manor. 3.7, the roof area for possible solar panel installation is allocated only to the roof space directly above the subject manor. I know you have some maps on pages 12 through 14 or so I just was kind of confused. I don't know if it's needed since you have these maps. And then my other comment on the maps that you have with the layout, it might be nice if you could put the approximate number of square feet per appropriate section. You probably have talked about that, just way if somebody thinks they want solar panels, they know they only have 16 square feet, they don't even necessarily bother, or they go through some other process rather than get all the way through this just to find out that they only have 16 square feet. Ira, did you bring that comment up before? I figured you might. Thanks.
Should we readdress it? Or we're giggling because that exact question was brought up by Ira in the previous meeting.
Okay.
And because the allocation is more of an exactness, if we gave an approximation, I don't know that would be best. That's why we very specifically allocated it or articulated it in that you get a percentage of the number of manors in the home. So if there's 8 manors, you get 1/8. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we have HVAC machines up there, so we have condensers, we have a multitude of other things. So there's really not an appropriate way to give an approximation, because what it has to do, each one has to have an aerial plot allocated to it with the proper amount of code space, and then say you're going to get 16.9 square feet. So if I told somebody they were going to get 25 and I only gave them 16.9.
Again, I was looking for an approximate versus, is it 25 versus 250 is more of the kind of thing I was thinking of. Just, again, there's going to be some number that's going to be below, making it potentially even worthwhile pursuing it with this policy. But that was just a thought. So I'll leave that up to the
I'm going to have to agree with Mark. Even we had this discussion before, that an approximation with a disclaimer, saying that there may be items on the roof, like as you mentioned, compressors and vents and so on, that could potentially reduce the amount of space. But I think for all fairness, we need to have a good guess and make it clear that it is not an exact thing, and it may be reduced significantly due to, and I understand your position, but since there's somebody else supporting this,
agreed.
I'm going to come back again with it.
I'm smiling because in my experience in this, when you use an educated, sophisticated guess, you usually get in trouble for it.
Okay.
In construction, it's a game of exactness down to the 32nd or 64th of an inch. And you can be held accountable for that with liquidated damages. And so in my project management brain, I do not like to make an estimate.
Make it in red that the disclaimer is not accurate, that due to whatever is possibly on the roof, may reduce the space for all.
May we call it the IRA guesstimate?
You could, if you want.
Okay, good. Okay,
back
Jim,
to me.
back to you.
Okay, and section 2.16, we've been advised that it conflicts with Civil Code section 714A, so we just need to eliminate 2.16 and move the others up appropriately.
Okay. Andy, looks like you're getting ready to speak.
Just an informational question. Mike, how many buildings, 2-story buildings in the Third Mutual have solar panels on them right now? Is it zero?
You know, I'd have to.
I'm just wondering, do any?
Yeah, I don't, no, it's definitely not zero, but I would have to look at the exact number, but there's
Okay, I'm
definitely a
just
few
wondering
that
what
have allocated some
happens.
space.
Are they, the ones, let's say that there are some buildings, two-story buildings in Third that have solar panels on them. How are they impacted by,
Good.
We don't have any HOA panels on the two-story buildings, I don't believe.
That
well,
is
the
correct.
private panels? Okay.
But was that what he was asking? Could a member have put up panels in the past in a larger footprint that we're now allowing? I thought that was.
Well, how the standard came to arise was a resident had requested it, and that's what we actually used on one of the buildings and did the data plot and equally proportioned. And I believe that building had 12 manners in it, so we did 1/12. But to my knowledge right now, I don't believe we have a specific resident that has placed panels on one of the second stories.
If one was approved, properly approved, that will not be affected by this new standard, it will be grandfathered in, as that have been reviewed and approved.
Ray, we can't hear.
Getting a lot of crosstalk here.
Sorry, Mike will just, yeah, that's, okay.
Just a conversation. I am sorry. So if one installation was properly approved, it will not be affected by the implementation of this standard. It will just be grandfathered in as a previous installation.
Okay. And do we need to make that statement somewhere in this, or would just be a general?
It looks appropriate to make that statement.
Okay.
We will add that section to the appropriate section.
Sounds great. But thanks,
Okay,
Andy.
thank you.
Good question. Any other questions, comments? Anybody on Zoom? I'm looking, since again, I can't see SK or Jules, all right? And no member comments, you say? All right. Okay. All right. So looks like it's now time to vote. Again, at this time we'll be voting as to whether to submit this reenacted standard forward for 28-day member review and comment
With the correction.
with the minor corrections that we mentioned. When do you think I would be able to get those corrections in a version within a week? Great, thanks. All right. Ralph. Okay. Who are we missing? Moon, have you voted?
Director Park, if you could send in your vote for this item. Thank you. And I believe Jules is still absent.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So this passes 8. There's one vote against. Okay. Okay. And 8 votes for. So this will go on 28-day member review and comment. We'll readdress it next month. Agenda item 13B is for the board to entertain a motion to approve a revision to architectural standard number 1, general requirements. These updates were suggested also by the ACSC, and today we'll also be voting as to whether or not to submit this revised standard forward for 28-day member review and comment. I see you standing up there. Mike, do you have opening comments for us?
I do not.
Okay, got it. Can I get a motion to approve this? Jim has his hand up. Great, Kush seconds. Thank you both. Any questions, comments?
I have some comments.
Okay.
On item 1.5, where it refers to parking passes must be displayed in the windshield at all times, we no longer issue daytime parking permits, as far as I know, from the, when you enter the gates.
Okay.
What's happens is they either have a code that's on their phone, or I guess you could email them if you had your workers coming in and they could print up the email, but a lot of times that's not possible. So I think we should strike the parking passes must be displayed in the windshield at all times, because I don't think we do them anymore. I think that was a real old situation.
The official response that I got from that is that security no longer prints those passes out. However, resident services has the ability to print out a paper pass to go in the windshield if the contractor needs it. So the official stance is partially, yes, security no longer prints them, but resident services will print the pass out for the contractor if it's needed.
And how are they going to get that pass to them from a logistic point of view?
I'll ask Siobhan to help kind of just follow up with this. I mean, if they don't have a pass, are they going to get ticketed? That's the first thing.
Yes.
And if they are going to get ticketed, then how do we get them the pass?
Let us please, look into that. We'll give you a
And
recommendation.
then a second item is the addition of, you pulled 1.11 out of it, right? It's not in our paperwork.
On the general requirements of 1.1 permits and fees?
1.11 is not in the paperwork that we're looking at as the final.
That parking, what was it addressing? Because here's the red line version. I don't know what 111 is, sorry.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
it wasn't.
111 was the middle one. It used to be 111.
there
It's
was-
now 1.8. Okay. Well,
I've got like six different issues of this, so I'm trying to
can I
find that.
go on while you're looking?
Okay, yeah.
So just in general, back to 1.5, this parking thing, I thought that whole statement was quite confusing. It starts by saying parking of contractors or other invitees' vehicles is prohibited in covered resident parking. Yet later it says the resident may allow the contractor to park in the resident's designated spot. So if his designated spot is covered, open residence spaces, I just thought it was confusing. So it could probably be rewritten a little bit.
I'm smiling because we had the same philosophical discussion.
Okay. If you need help in rewriting it, let me
talking
know.
about shall versus however. And essentially, it could be as simple as a statement of saying that the contractor can park in the member's spot only. But we're trying to articulate that there's a multitude of parking spots out there, and here are all the ones you can't. But, if your member says your truck will fit in their spot, you can park in that
And I
spot.
might just move that sentence up
Maybe
to the
we've got
top.
the first,
You know,
just keep it
yeah, and then
simple.
otherwise, blah, 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 or something like
Yes.
that. And then the last thing, sorry, Jim, you looks like you found what you wanted, but this, cleaning of paint tools, buckets must be contained in trays. This is under 1.6, dump sites. Under this big, bold use of community dump sites is not permitted. Does our staff follow the same guidelines for all of the maintenance and construction work that they do? And if not, then again, we should make sure that our rules are equitable. We shouldn't
I
require
would
contract.
defer that to our landscaping and maintenance department. because
Understand
would
that
be-
you
We'll look
can.
into it, Mark, and
Yeah,
get that.
I saw you writing it down, and I'm not expecting you to answer that. Okay, that was all I had. Jim, you
Okay,
had more?
and then in 1.11, staging areas, again, same kind of thing. They cannot be larger than 20, that's fine. Extension cords, all that's fine. But where you come to, all materials and tools must be removed at the end of the business of, I assume that business day. But the reality is the company we contract with stages stuff for weeks at a time when they're doing stucco repair. And by the same token, a contractor coming in doing something where, say, he has a cement mixer, to me, that's unreasonable for him to have to remove that cement mixer if he's doing work in the next 3 or 4 days. So that no overnight storage of materials and tools in common areas is very restrictive. I think there should be a process of when they request the common area usage, they can say, these are big pieces of equipment that we are going to be leaving overnight until we finish the project.
So as we approve the use of the common area for staging, then I'll add a section that allows them to, if it's equipment that's going to be ongoing for use, to be able to be approved to be staged there as well. Okay.
Because otherwise, the member's going to be paying extra time for the contractor to take things away and bring them back, take things away, bring them back. It's kind of silly when our restoration leaves things for weeks at a time, and especially with stucco, where you're looking at it, it's 2 weeks between brown and
Scratch and brown.
for scratch and brown, and then another week between that and finish.
For the finish, yes.
So,
Okay, thanks. Any other comments, questions?
Where are you reading 1.11? Which page?
what was that?
The last comment, where did you find it? What was the second?
1.11.
What page? It's on something new that was sitting on our desk?
Yes.
It still doesn't have 1.11.
Second page? He was looking under page 2. On that
Page
side.
2 on the bottom.
No,
No,
you
but you
had
had it
it, you
in
had
your
it.
hand.
Open it up. The bottom of the inside page.
Oh, it's a new edition. All right, got it.
Okay. No, yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Any questions, comments from any members, Michaela? All right. Okay, I think then we will now vote on as to whether or not to put this revised standard with the minor changes and suggested changes forward for 28-day member review and approval. And hopefully, again, I can get an updated version in a week. Thanks. Assuming this passes. All right, and this looks like it's passing 9-0 to 0. Thank you, board. All right, moving on to agenda item 13C. It's for the board to approve a supplemental appropriation of funds to pay for staff to process the backlog of damage restoration events. I believe Jay from staff has hopefully some quick comments for us on this.
Thank you all. Good morning, President Laws, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thankful to hear you say quick. I'm all about that. So we've already brought this through being birthed in ops and then through finance for approval there. Basically, we have 710-ish cases at this point that we're trying to get settled and resolved, get people in for the hearings, and get back the money that we have spent in years past, the last 3 years, if possible. So in order to do that, we have to bring on some temporary staff and then offer some current VMS staff some overtime on Saturdays. We're seeing some successes initially with that in United, and we're hoping that you all move in our favor and allow us to essentially get your money back to the mutual and the residents.
Great.
Here for any questions.
Okay, seeing no questions, comments, Donna, can you first read the resolution for us before we proceed?
Okay. Whereas there's a backlog of more than 710 damage restoration events between 2020 and 2022 that may have been caused by a member's alteration or negligence, and whereas each case in the backlog requires a responsibility evaluation to take place per Civil Code 5855 in order to impose a reimbursement assessment to the member, and whereas the potential amount recovered to the mutual is estimated at approximately $3 million, and whereas the amount of staff time it'll take to complete a responsibility evaluation for each of the backlogged cases exceeds the resources of existing staff, and whereas the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $98,100 is needed to engage temporary staffing services to complete the evaluation of the backlog cases, now therefore be it resolved on June 20th, 2023, the Board of Directors of the Corporation hereby authorize a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $98,100 to be funded from the operating fund for temporary staffing services to assist with processing the backlog of reimbursement cases resulting from damage restoration events. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution.
Thank you, Don. All right, can I get a motion to approve this? Jim moves, Ira seconds. Thank you both. Any other questions, comments? Anybody has? Any member questions, comments? Fantastic, it's time to vote. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
For your quick overview.
Let's get it, yeah.
I did vote, but I'm still have a question. Can I ask you?
Yes, please.
We are estimating 16 months for the process to be completed.
You have your microphone on?
Oh, sorry. We are estimating this to be completed in 16 months. What if it goes over 16 months? Because there could be some reason that we could not finish in time. And the second part of my question is, while we are still working on the backlog, we will make sure that there are no new cases that are put in this to add up to the backlog.
Okay, I think I can answer both questions, but Jay will help me if I miss. So today we're appropriating $98,100, which is enough to last us through the end of this year.
Okay.
During our budget process for 2024, we'll approve some funds for additional because 16 months, the rest of this year is only 6 months. So for another 10 months.
Okay.
And if at the end of that 10 months, or in the budget process for 2025, it looks like we're going to need more funds, we will allocate more that way. Your second question?
That we will ascertain that we won't allow anything more to be added to this backlog.
So Jay can speak to, he has confidence in his current staff at being able to keep up with the existing load. It was just that it's the backlog that they were having trouble with. So go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a great question. My current staff has been forced to look at the backlog in the earliest cases, which left a consistent backlog. If we're working the tail end and then just stacking them up on the front end, that doesn't really help. So the goal of this is to have this temporary teams on Saturdays to work the entirety of the backlog, leaving my staff to be able to do the day-to-day and 2023 stuff, to combat exactly your concern. That's the goal.
Yeah, because it was very stressful when we used to do the executive hearings to have some old things dug out where members had already reached their
potentially. It remains stressful.
Yes.
So yes,
yeah.
that's
and
what
to be brought out like, ooh, did I do this type of thing?
Yeah.
So please do something.
We're sure trying.
All right. And the vote was.
It passed 8-0.
8. There was
one abstention.
801. Okay.
And who abstained?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. Any other questions before we move on to that? For that one? All right. Okay, and then finally, agenda item 13D, finally, from a new business perspective, the board is being asked to entertain a motion to approve updates to Third's leasing and rental policy. These updates were suggested by the Resident Policy and Compliance Committee and were made as a result of recent state law changes regarding the renting of rooms in the state's effort to help resolve the state's homeless problem. Today, we will be voting as to whether or not to submit this updated policy forward for 28-day member review and comment. Can I get a motion to approve this? Jim moves. I have a second. Thank you, guys. Keeping everybody else from having to raise their hand. Appreciate it. Any questions, comments from members of the board?
Only that this is just housekeeping, we have to comply with the state law.
Right, okay. And yeah, and so changes were made by our legal team working with Pamela Bashline and her community services team to make sure that everything, even renters will have to follow the similar guidelines to what lessees do. Andy, you had a question or comment?
I'm just wondering, the amount of insurance coverage. You know, we talk about HO6 policies, which covers the interior of the unit. And my understanding is, the way this is written, we can't require a level of insurance. But if if the insurance turns out to be inadequate, even though they're required to assign the proceeds to us, I guess the association would just have to eat the difference, or our insurance people would cover it. In other words, somebody has inadequate HO6.
Okay.
A loss occurs, and their insurance, for argument's sake, covers half of the loss.
Okay. They are responsible
They are
for the other.
responsible, and, but they're not the renter. The renter's not responsible.
Right.
It's the owner.
Right.
Okay, all right, that's what I needed.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, I think there may be some provision in here that the renter should have renter's insurance above and beyond what the member has for HO6, but you're right. I mean, it could be insufficient. There's really not an easy way for us to administer and confirm and that kind of thing. So it's a recommendation. So it would be unfortunate if something happened and the member did not have adequate insurance. But thanks. Okay. Yes, Kush.
HO6 is correct. Many of the people don't even have the HO6 policy, even though they're supposed to have it. So it is entirely up to them to have this policy or not. The second part is, now that there are two people living in a unit and they want to rent out the second bedroom, so now it becomes 3 people in the room, in the house. Will they automatically be assessed for the third person?
Yes. Yes, that assessment that we had put in place, third board has put in place, as well as GRF has put in place for additional occupants would take.
So that will automatically be kicked in?
Yes.
Okay, that's important.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? All right. But seeing none, it's now time, and again, any from our member? Okay. Seeing none, now time to vote as to whether to submit this updated leasing rental policy forward for 28-day member review and comment.
Oh, my, take it again. Mine is very slow.
Okay. All right, there it is. Okay.
Did we read the resolution?
No, because it's 28-day member review. We'll read it next time. So it passes for 20, again, to go on to 28-day member review and comment. 8 yeses, 0 nos, 1 abstention. Okay. Thank you, board. We'll now move on to agenda item 14, where members of this board will share our monthly committee status updates, starting with the report of the Finance Committee. Donna.
Okay. And with that, I would like to begin with just an informational item based upon questions we get from time to time. Under the agenda, item 11B4, for recommendations from the Finance Committee, it spoke of approve the Treasury bill reinvestment. And we frequently, or at least I frequently, get questioned as to what is our policy with our reserve funds. And so very quickly, I just want to share it with you. Most of it is really directed by Davis Sterling. We have very little leeway and have to follow what the regulations say. And if we can move on to that first slide, please, you will see that Davis Sterling says, in terms of HOA reserve funds, they must be deposited in accounts that protect the principal and are covered by insurance provided by an agency of the federal government or a guarantee corporation such as a credit union. And that's really quite specific. And also inherent in that is that the funds hopefully would remain in California if they are invested through CDs or something like that in a bank. As we move on, We're also given some guiding principles regarding our investment strategy. And first, because these are listed in order of importance, first and above all is safety, preservation against loss. Second, liquidity, the ability to quickly convert to cash. These are our reserve funds. If we need them, we have to be able to get to them. And third, yield, return on investment. That's always important, but it's absolutely imperative, and we are admonished that boards should seek a reasonable return on the association's reserve accounts, but should never adopt a strategy that emphasizes return over preservation of capital. And there are just two, if we move on to the next, there are two categories that are typical for HOAs, and so just kind of share that with you. The most common ones first would be CDs. There's only one problem with CDs, and that is that no account holder will get insurance from the federal government for more than $250,000, and we have $25 million. So it makes it a little difficult, and it's more difficult for us, but HOAs have that problem. How do we fulfill Davis Sterling and use CDs when, in fact, the insurance rates are better on CDs than they are on our other option, which we'll share with you in a minute? And that was something called IntraFi. It used to be called CDARS. And what it is basically a network of banks working together to help high balance savers, such as us, ensure that all deposits are protected. So it spreads the funds across multiple CD accounts. So if we need 100 CDs to be insured, 100 banks will have those, but it's all managed by the one bank. And therefore, everything is insured, everything is covered, and it's totally protected. And we did have that at one time when we were doing better at CDs than we were at option two. Option two being U.S. Treasury bills. And those, of course, are federally insured. There are no fees for managing these funds. They have various terms, and I did want to point out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and a year. And we have been advised to ladder those investments, and ladder meaning we have a 25% at 3 months, 25% at 6 months, 25% at 9 months, and 25% at a year. And so in the agenda, we had approved the recommendation from the Finance Committee, which is a committee of the whole, so therefore it indirectly was a recommendation by the board. We had approved to take those 3 months that is maturing next week and had approved to follow our standard recommendation that once one matures, we would move it to a 1 year so that they continue to ladder and roll. Should things change, that may change. But for now, that's been the advice. And that's going to work probably very well this year, since when the Federal Reserve met just a few days ago, they didn't change the interest rates. However, there is the implication that before the year is over, they might go another 0.5 point. And therefore, we will be ready, because every 3 months, we will have a Treasury bill maturing. So just wanted to share that with you so that you kind of know where we are, what we're doing. When we did CDs, we didn't have to pay for managing those funds either, and Treasury bills, we don't have any expense for management. So that's where we are. And with that, I'd like to share with you the financial report as of April 30th. Now, yes, this is nearly the end of June, but our Finance Committee meets the very first week of the month, and it was right after May ended. There was no way to have that report. So keep in mind that the numbers you're seeing and the work that's reflected is end of April. First slide, we always start with just a 30,000-foot overview of what came in and what went out, just generally. And assessment revenue was just under $14 million, non-assessment revenue just under $1 million, with total revenue at $14.795 million, against total expenses of just a little over $12 million. So overall, not looking at any specific funds, our net revenue was favorable to the amount of $2,756,000. As we move on, we take a look very specifically at our operating fund. That's absolutely critical. This is the money that we know we're going to need, that we anticipate. How closely did we anticipate to the actual expenses, et cetera? Our assessment revenue was $9.5 million, our non-assessment revenue. So that's, when you look at this, think about how much of the total income went to operating. So we had assessment revenue, as I just said, of $9.5 million, non-assessment revenue of $699,000 that went to the operating fund for a total of $10.251 million, against expenses, again, expenses of the operating fund only of $9.1 million, leaving us, again, an operating surplus of just a little over $1 million. So let's move on and take a look at slightly different. Now we're going to look and see where are we in relationship to budget, remembering this is April 30th, not June. These are the numbers from back then. Not surprisingly and thankfully, our actual assessment revenue was exactly equal to what we expected, $13,812,000. Non-assessment revenue was better than anticipated. And that sometimes is a bit unusual. And basically, it was because we had a little bit better interest and earnings on our reserve fund. So that was good, and that's kind of reflective of the policy we've been using. So total revenue, as you saw on the very first slide, was $14.75 million. We budgeted the $14,628, and that you can see the difference primarily is in our investments that did so much better, and a little bit in outside services. Total expense, actual was a little over $12 million. Our budget anticipated $13.7 million. That is something that is really related to when work started and various things. So let's look a little more closely, and let's look and see where some of these differences and variances occur. If we can go to the next slide. The big green bars, which means we were favorable to a significant amount. First of all, outside services, $780,000 favorable. That sounds wonderful, except that it resulted primarily from the timing of roof replacement, which didn't begin until April. And remember, this is an April 30th statement, so we have invoices and work that have to get caught up. In addition, it turns out, definitely in our favor, there's currently less structure work within the community required than was anticipated. So we actually will probably do a little bit better there. There just are fewer items within the community that need replacement than were budgeted. Waste line remediation began this month in June, so none of the expense of that is reflected yet. Employee compensation, our next very large area, is favorable. Unfortunately, it's primarily due to open positions that continue in maintenance and construction and landscape departments. Landscape, it's ground maintenance that's the biggest problem. In an M&C, it's damage restoration, carpentry, paint, and plumbing. Our investment income, as I mentioned earlier, was better than budgeted. Remembering we do our budget, we're doing it now for 2024, so we did that well in advance of current interest rates and current Treasury note rates, or Treasury bill rates. And it's coming in right now, what will mature next week was coming in at about 4%. The latest quotes are for that renewal of 5 to 5.25%. That by next week, when we are ready to reinvest, when they mature, we will find out, but it will definitely be favorable. And a year before, when we created that budget, it was an average return of 1.5%. So we obviously, things are looking much better there. Utilities was favorable, primarily in water and sewer. Water was actually favorable due to almost 25% lower consumption than budgeted. And for that, we have, thanks Mother Nature, for the abundance of rain, which maybe was a little too abundant, and our members and residents. It's the efforts you've put in. And we have been notified that there will soon be a hearing at the end of July from El Toro Water District. They have found a need to raise rates yet again. So not only are we always dependent upon getting our residential water, that's all of us, our residential water from somewhere else. We have no real source of it here. We always have to purchase it. It always has to be transported long distances. So now with a rate increase coming, it's wonderful to see that we have that favorable result, primarily in water for our utilities, but we have to be really continue to be diligent, and thank you all for your efforts, and please keep them up. On the a negative side, or on the unfavorable side, $52,000 was unfavorable, and primarily that was fewer leases and fewer resales. You will see when we get to the resale report, there were fewer units sold, less money coming in from that, and less from our lease fees as well. And then materials and supplies, the costs go up, and it just happens. Actually, that wasn't bad, considering what kind of inflation we've been dealing with. So let's move on to slide number 5. And this one, I love these pie charts because you can really see the contribution. And our two biggest sources, this looks at non-assessment revenue, just under $1 million. And it was 32% of it for chargeable services, and there's that investment interest income, 29%. And that's what accounted for that favorable expense on the other chart. And so we like seeing that, and we hope to continue to a much smaller extent, permit fees, lease processing, laundry revenue, et cetera. But the two big ones, chargeable services and investment interest income, and we hope that continues. Moving on, let's look at our total expenses. And our expenses, not surprisingly and pretty consistently, employee compensation is 34% of our total expenses, and insurance, which we just heard about today, continuing to be about 25% of our total expenses. Outside services to a smaller degree, but that we have work that has to get done, and sometimes that is actually beneficial to us to use outside services to get it done quickly and efficiently. Our utilities are expensive. We have millions of dollars worth of utility bills, and materials and supplies. The other things are really extremely small, but employee compensation and insurance are primarily where we're looking. And if we move on to the next slide, these are the other budgeted areas that we have to look at. Our non-operating fund balances. The operating fund is where we saw in detail. Let's look at our replacement funds. And the biggest thing, we've got replacement funds, the Garden Villa Fund, that is funded by the Garden Villa residents, members. And the disaster fund, unappropriated expenditures, is really our contingency fund. That's for those things that are probably going to come up and we just don't know what they are, but we need to be ready. If you look at it, you all can read the numbers. What's very important is that the beginning balances are lower than our current balances in just about every single area, with exception of the disaster fund, which has dropped slightly. New radios and things had to be purchased, and so a little bit went down. But primarily, each of those funds are doing well. Contingency fund, the unappropriated expenditures, holding pretty well as expected. So let's move on. And this is just a bar chart that kind of lets us know year over year how these funds have done. And it's just obvious right from glancing at it that between 2019 and 2023, our replacement funds have grown, and we need to do that. It's always good to see we've got a community with aging facilities, and we are going to have to be prepared. So it's nice to see that. We also see that you can see the disaster fund is a little smaller, and has been mentioned before. The disaster fund initially, when it was set up and budgeted for, we didn't have earthquake insurance. We do now. It's not a whole lot, but it certainly is something that takes some burden off of the disaster fund. And so the fact that that's a little smaller is fine. The unappropriated, we've actually been pretty consistent. And we seem to be hitting that mark pretty well. And a very thin line across the top is the Garden Villa Rec Room Fund. And it's very tiny, but it is still sustainable. So let's move on to the last, our resale history. And you can see when we mentioned earlier that there was less income from resales, fees, et cetera, you can see that in January, February, March, and April of this year, the sales were much slower. And much of that is really there are fewer listings because of the change in interest rate, et cetera. People have not been putting units on the market, and some of the sales possibly slowing down as well. And with that, that concludes the finance report. Any questions?
Thank you, Donna. Any questions, Andy? You have a question?
Any question? Yeah.
Earlier, we heard from Jay about a very good program to accelerate the disaster restoration reimbursements. Now, this is money that's due to us. It's a timing issue. So it's not necessarily, I mean, there's a normal amount every year, but this time we're catching up, so we're going to get some extra money in. Did we budget any money for disaster reimbursement? First of all, let me ask, does it hit the operating statement as revenue?
The
Disaster,
reimbursement funds
reimbursement,
would be miscellaneous revenue?
non-assessment revenue?
Right.
Non-assessment, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering, and I could have looked this up, but I didn't. Disaster, did we budget anything in the plan for this? It's a normal, it really is normal in a way. Every year we're going to get some reimbursement.
I don't believe there was a special allowance made for it, but remember, this is a very unusual circumstance.
Okay.
The backlog was between 2020 and 2022. It was a COVID issue. People couldn't get inside to get things done and
Yeah.
fixed, and insurance adjustment, et cetera. Once that's caught up, so we have budgets that cross each area, but that was so exceptional. And so I doubt there was a special
sounds like
thing,
a
but we
pure
do have our
ad.
contingency.
If we're going to have a surplus this year, that's an ad. That's a good thing. We're going to get a surplus from this item. This is a surplus item.
Yes, although
Okay.
my grandmother used to say, don't count your chickens before.
Okay, are we going to, when we start happening, and I don't know if any's happened this year, I don't know the level of it, are we going to break it out to kind of keep track of this thing as it goes along? Are we going to be breaking it out in the reporting?
Our finance people break things like that out. Any money that comes in, we always account for where it's from.
So I'm just saying, I think we ought to do that.
Yeah.
And then, it's a little early, but that's extra money. I'm not going to call it a windfall. It's a timing issue, but I would love to see that spent on some current things rather than going into reserve. You know, I think this is if we got some stuff that we were prudently, in fact, we kind of delayed spending money on, this is an opportunity to use these catch-up funds to kind of deal with stuff that we should be dealing with, but that we don't because we're very prudent.
Yeah.
Just
I
want to
think
mention that.
Yeah, and thank you. You know, it's a good point to bring up, but I think we'll be hearing from that, and make sure if you don't hear about it, we'll be hearing it at our budget meetings and something to think about. But again, when that money actually comes in, we don't know, so it's a little harder.
Okay, yeah, we haven't gotten anything from Jay on that.
No.
I mean, yeah,
They've gotten, as you heard, Jay said, staff was working on backlog because people's insurance, the claim has to be filed within a certain time frame.
Right, we don't want to lose
So what
that.
it was doing was it was taking care of those back items, but not keeping up with the current. So the whole purpose of this is to get us even. Once we're even again, and a lot of the costs probably relate to some of the rain we've had.
Would it be inappropriate to ask Jay for some sort of forecast on recovery?
He just said $3 million.
Yeah, I think that they have one. I think they're
Yeah.
expecting, and we should get it through the budget process because we're expecting
Okay.
most of that $3 million next year. And so they've already started thinking about how that might impact our budgeting for next year.
And the finance people are going to be.
Really, next year? Not much this year? I'm surprised.
No, I mean,
No.
we just approved the funding today.
They don't even-
They have to hire the staff. They have to train them. So I think the majority of it, but they have those numbers figured out. So we'll get those for
Okay,
you.
all right, thank you. That's all I
We'll
have.
get those for everybody
That's all I
on
have.
board.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other
Good,
questions,
but
I
good,
think
thanks.
concludes
But-
my report.
And I agree with you. If there is extra money, we should be spending it versus putting it off. Yes.
And I would want to say that having been through several of the budget processes, if we have extra money, we usually have things we would like to do, and often the decision when we have extra money is to accelerate projects that we want to get done and have had to sort of spread out in time. And so it doesn't change what needs to get done, it just gets done a little bit sooner.
Hopefully.
And that would be an extra appropriation that we'd be able to do when we actually know how much money we have. Is that, okay,
But good stuff.
thank you.
Glad you're thinking that way, because I am too. All right, next we have the ACSC. Jim, what do you got for us?
Okay, we met on June 12th, Monday. I want to reiterate the remarks that VMS made about on July 10th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. in Clubhouse 5. There'll be a contractors town hall. Want to get people to participate with that. Items that we handled were over-the-counter variances. We had 2 of them approved. Just to tell people about over-the-counter variances, they are variances that are just like other variances prior approved, so they've been pushed to the over-the-counter, which makes it much more expeditious to get taken care of. And so that's a process that we've done. Then we also had 4 variance requests that were approved. The items that we went over today, the revision to the architectural standard 1 for the general requirements. We talked about that exclusively, so I don't need to go over that again. Reenact the solar panels 2-story buildings. Again, we went over that today, so I don't need to on that. Items for future agenda that we have on the boards to work on. Updated resale inspection fee, we hope to have that ready in July. Updated alterations fees, we hope to have that done in July. Contractor violation policy to include the smoking policy, again in July. And then things that are in process are revise the mutual consent packet to be more user-friendly and create updated contractor package. That's in process. We're working with the city of Laguna Woods to streamline all aspects of alteration to lessen confusion and replication of processing. That's in process. We have additional things that we're working on is architectural standard 41B, the 3-story building solar panels, architectural standard 42, ramps, architectural standard 8, porch lift elevators, architectural standard 16, garage doors, sectional or one piece. So all those things are being worked on. We keep moving forward, trying to make things simpler for the members. Our next meeting will be Thursday, July 6th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom. And that's my report.
Okay, great, thanks. I just had one question regarding the contractor town hall, or is that for just contractors?
No, it's for everybody. That's
Okay.
why I announced it at the ACSC. I'm announcing it here. VMS announced it.
Okay.
So we want
But we call it
lots of
contractor town
participants
hall, so I would just wanted to make sure that it is something that you're,
that members can attend also.
those that are thinking they may want to renovate or do some alteration, it'd be good information for them. Great, thanks. Any other questions, comments for Jim? All right, is there anything that you'd like to share regarding the third Maintenance and Construction Committee, Rob?
Thank you. Our last meeting was held on May 1st, and so most of that was covered our last meeting here. But let me mention a couple of items that are of interest to a pretty good number of people. Staff was requested to draft a proposal to install rubber feet under washer and dryer machines, primarily in the 3-story buildings for sound deadening purposes. That should make a few people happy. So that's coming along. Also, we discussed the reliability of the wash machines themselves and directed staff to go ahead and buy some Speed Queen machines, I think, which are supposed to be much improved. And also, they will be US built and parts are available a lot easier. Also survey some other sources. The request for proposal for the French drain system inside of Gate 11 was discussed, and proposals have since been received and evaluated. GV rec room window replacement was again discussed, so that'll be under consideration for the 2024 budget review, as will a number of these other items. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 11. We had to reschedule that due to Independence Day and everybody's going to make a long weekend out of the 4th, and they're not going to be here, so we can't have a meeting. So it'll be on July 11th.
Okay, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks. Is there anything new to be shared regarding the Water Conservation Committee, Donna?
Yes, I've already mentioned that the rates may very well be going up. What is interesting is our next meeting, we meet only quarterly, our next meeting is July 27th. That's always a Thursday. It's the fourth Thursday of the month. We are meeting at 2 p.m. That evening is when El Toro Water District will be having the public hearing. So it's sort of interesting. Usually we have representatives from El Toro Water District at our water conservation meeting. With their public hearing that night, I don't know whether we will have representatives, but I'm hoping we will. And I intend to attend. That's I intend to attend that public hearing so we can keep track of it. They've got some aging pieces that need to be redone, and so we're probably going to have to pay. But again, everybody's been really good about conserving water, and we just got to keep it up.
Okay. Great. Thanks for that update. And finally, from a third committee perspective, we have the Third Residential Policy and Compliance Committee. This committee last met on May 28th when we discussed updates to Third's leasing and rental policy that we put on 28-day notice earlier today, as well as we discussed our compliance letters and our barbecue policy. Now that it's getting to be summertime. This committee will next meet 1 week from today, next Tuesday, June 27th at 9:30 a.m. here in the boardroom. We plan to continue our discussion of our barbecue policy, discuss whether or not we should make changes to our financial qualifications, which is what is needed to own a manor in Third, as well as discuss our disciplinary violation matrix. And that's all we have for Third mutual committees. We'll now move on to agenda item 15, where we will share our monthly GRF committee status updates, starting with the GRF Community Access Committee, or CAC. The GRF CAC last met on Thursday, June 8th. The committee discussed and approved the donation of 21 new PCs for the PC Lab. These were purchased by the PC Club with a grant from the United Way. So thank you, United Way, for that. The committee also discussed and approved the formation of a new Garden Centers Advisory Committee, and also recommended an annual dollar amount to charge for the 5 Garden Center veggie pods purchased a few years ago, and now they're trying to get them used. The GRF CAC will next meet on Monday, July 17th at 10 a.m. here in the boardroom. Moving on, what's the latest with the GRF Media and Communications Committee? Jim?
We last met on May 15th. I think that's correct. And at that time, discussed Media and Communications report, the Broadband Ad Hoc Committee report, the Website Ad Hoc Committee report, Broadband Services report. With all of these things going on, we continue to have so many items that are done by Media and Communications, TV, this day, all the different items, and so it goes on and on. The list is 3 pages long, so I'm not going to read it to you. Our next meeting is going to be on July 17th at 1:30 p.m. in the boardroom.
Okay, great, thank you. And next we have one of the committees you just mentioned, GRF Website Ad Hoc Committee. That Ad Hoc Committee last met on Monday, May 22nd. This Ad Hoc Committee voted to work with a web development vendor called Urban Insight to redesign the LagunaWoodsVillage.com website. And we directed staff to pursue getting approval from the appropriate committees and get a signed contract in place to begin this process. So now that is going forward to the GRF Finance Committee, and then we'll go forward to the GRF Board for approval, and may have to come to the members based upon the size of it. We'll see. The date and time for the next GRF Website Ad Hoc Committee has not yet been determined. And And Jim, back to you, or any updates that you want to share regarding the GRF Broadband Ad Hoc Committee?
Well, the only thing with the Broadband Ad Hoc Committee, it is a closed committee. It last met on May 31st. Next meeting is June 27th.
Okay.
All of it's confidential, so.
At this time, okay.
Just the fact that we met, we made decisions, and moving forward.
Okay, good, thanks for that. What's the latest regarding the Laguna Woods traffic hearings? SK?
Yes, traffic hearing was held May 17th. And during the hearing, we reviewed 8 cases, and I want to point out 2 distinct cases to inform everybody. First, one of a person was not produced a driver's license, so that he got fined of $200. The next item is the resident Robert pointed out that that particular vehicle was convicted for vehicle used for storage violation. And I deeply against that violation, citation, because to me, it could invade privacy or our human rights, even though it says it has a rules and regulation on our rule, but personal vehicle convicted for use storage, fundamentally, I am against of it. So we need to review, our lawyer should review that particular rules so that we don't violate individual rights. And I vote against it, and I voted it out. And I felt really bad because that particular person was in dying process. And her, his wife did not have time to take care of those kind of citation. So I don't feel that we do have some heart rather than rule. So we need to show our heart to our residents to take care of them rather than put on some spot like this. That's my point. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks, SK. Regarding the GRF Compliance Ad Hoc Committee, that this committee last met on Friday, June 9th. The main focus of the discussion was to bring all of the disciplinary related policies and procedures together under a single grouping for easier access and understanding. And we talked a little bit about how best to do that and how that might look once done. And we gave the compliance the task to draft that with help from others, I believe. And the date and time of the next GRF Compliance Ad Hoc Committee is to be determined. Moving on to the Information Technology and Advisory Committee. This committee, known as ITAC, is currently overseeing the efforts to replace most of our multitude of old tools and systems with a single automated tool that will be used by staff, members, and residents to track all requests and activities and support the day-to-day operations of the village. The first phase of this effort will focus on our accounting tools and is expected to go live later this year. The first phase is currently in the testing phase and is a little bit behind where we'd hoped to be by now, mainly due to some staffing issues. Budgets are underway, a lot of finance stuff going on, and getting the resources has been a bit difficult. We're having some discussions as to whether or not it'd be appropriate to bring in some contract workers to help out, either by backfilling VMS staff with their day-to-day jobs so that the VMS staff can focus on testing, or if some contractors can help testing. So those things are being discussed and considered as to whether that will effectively get us back on schedule or not. The next ITAC meeting is scheduled for Friday, June 30th. And moving on, what's the latest with the GRF Maintenance and Construction Committee, Ralph?
Well, Mark, we met on June 14th, so this is still fairly fresh. We discussed updates on a number of items. One was that one broadband air conditioning system has been installed on the roof and is functional. I understand there's 4 more to go on that. The equestrian center gates were discussed. The golf driving range renovation has been running a little behind schedule because of the spring rains. Turf has been removed, amendments have been added to the soil, and they plan to reinstall the lawn in July. Target completion date for that is now in November. New pool equipment is being considered for Clubhouse 1. This will improve the safety for servicing personnel. There's some problems there. Right now, they're doing a cost comparison between solid and liquid maintenance equipment or materials. The city is about to release, or about ready to approve a weld shop upgrade. They need a development permit yet, but that should not cause any particular problem. The cracked beam in the archery building was discussed extensively, and admittedly it needs attention. However, it's not an immediate problem. We don't expect any big problem with it. It's not going to fall down tomorrow. The design phase for Clubhouse 1 beautification program has been completed. Staff presented a draft RFP for the Clubhouse 1 beautification program. After I reviewed that at home the other day, I turned to my wife and I said, wow, when we get this done, it's going to blow you away. So you'll expect to see a lot of action there in the next, hopefully in the next probably couple of years. But hopefully when it's done, it's going to be beautiful. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 30th here in the boardroom and on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
Mark?
Yes?
I think you missed number G, which is the Security and Community Access Committee.
SK did.
It's not.
No, SK did the traffic.
It's not. They didn't meet in the last month, so it's
Okay.
moved down to when the. Yeah. So
It
I don't
shows up
know.
in this G section, yeah.
All right. Next, we'll hear about the GRF Disaster Preparedness Task Force, SK.
Yes, task force meeting was held on June 5th, 9:30 a.m. at boardroom. In that meeting, more than 12 people joined the meeting. They are the ham radio volunteer group. Believe they have about 50 members. And they raised 2 main concerns about our task forces. First, 2019 disaster plan has not been updated since, and Ed Green will take up on that task. Item B is we need urgent installation of 25-watt radio antenna at Clubhouse 3, and Mr. Muno is going to take up on that one. And those two are the major topic that we discussed. And the next task force meeting is scheduled July 25th. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, SK. And next we have GRF Mobility and Vehicles Committee. Kush?
Thank you.
Sure, his microphone's on.
The Mobility and Vehicles Committee met on June 7th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. In the boardroom. A new program was introduced and discussed called Sourcewell. It's a program to assist organizations like ours to get items at the best pricing and faster. Vehicles specs spreadsheet was presented, and it contained many items that were approved in previous years, but due to the new vehicles right sizing program, we noticed that in many cases fewer vehicles were ordered and received, thereby saving GRF several $100,000. As we are on our way to save money, we still have to update our fleet based on new legislation. Due to the new rule of CARB, which is California Air Resource Board, requiring all pre-2006 diesel-powered vehicles to be replaced. This item was discussed and approved to purchase in 2024 for appropriate departments. Next MNV meeting will be on August 2nd, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. in this boardroom.
Great, thank you, Kush.
Thank you.
And finally, the following GRF committees have not met since the last third board meeting of May 16th, so no planned updates for these. SK, you have something you want to, did you want to share something?
No, not at this point.
Okay. Did you?
Yes, the GRF Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow.
Okay, well, I was going to mention that.
Oh, okay, good. As long as you're going to mention it, good.
Yeah, so finally, let me go back to that. So finally, the following GRF committees have not met since last third board meeting of May 16th, so there are no updates for these specifically, but I'll just read them to you. GRF Security and Community Access Committee last met on April 26th and is scheduled to next meet on Wednesday, June 28th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. The GRF Clubhouse Facilities Renovation Ad Hoc Committee last met on March 6th, and the date and time of its next meeting is still to be determined. The GRF Finance Committee, that John had just mentioned, last met on April 19th and is scheduled to meet tomorrow, Wednesday, June 21st at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. The GRF Landscape Committee last met on May 10th and is scheduled to next meet on Wednesday, August 9th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. And finally, the GRF Purchasing Ad Hoc Committee last met March 22nd, and the date and time of its next meeting is still to be determined. And this concludes our committee reports. We're now at agenda item 16, which is for the board to note of any items they'd like to be discussed at a future board meeting. So far on our list, we have the 3 items that we put on 28-day member review and comment from today, which are the reenactment of Architectural Standard 41A for solar panels on 2-story buildings, a revision to Architectural Standard 1 for general requirements, and our proposed updates to thirds leasing and rental policy. Are there any other items any board member would like to add to be considered to be discussed? Andy?
Possibly, and this is the non-assessment revenue, expanding or increasing non-assessment revenue. Just talking about it, determining, if VMS is the one that actually provides this, then for sure they have to be involved. But I would like to see us explore opportunities to expand non-assessment revenue, because the success, I think, financially of the association is not just keeping control on expenses, but increasing revenues of the right sort. And I'd like to see a discussion on that, but I can't define it at this point, but something of that nature, how to increase non-assessment revenues.
Okay. All right. I'll note that down. We'll add that. Thank you. Any others? Okay. All right. Thanks, Andy. SK, go ahead.
Yes. Regarding our rule that is using the vehicle for storage, I'd like to see if Jules can review that rule, since it is not, if it were not to violate individual rights. Can you do that, Jules?
I would be happy to look into it. Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I believe that rule may be village-wide rule versus a third, but I'll also try to find that out. Not that what you're asking for and Jules taking a look at it is inappropriate, but just our hands may be a bit tied just from a third board perspective on how, other than us coming together as a group and asking the right teams to look at it if that's what we want to do. But, okay.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. That's fine.
I didn't know. Okay.
No problem. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any others? Okay. Great. Thanks, Andy and SK, for those ideas. We're now on agenda item 17, director comments. Any directors have any last minute comments you'd like to share? Andy, anything?
Yeah, just one. There was recently a committee reassignment of myself
That's right.
and SK. Do we need to vote on that, or
It was part of the consent calendar.
consent calendar? Okay, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see, item 11, 11E. Yeah, 11E.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're there. You guys are been updated on that. Okay. Great. Moon, you have any comments? Nothing? Ralph? Any?
No comment.
Okay. Jim?
No comment.
Okay.
No comment.
Donna, nothing? Kush?
Thank you. Good meeting. Just one thing to note. Now that the threat for COVID is almost diminished or gone, can we get rid of these partitions? Just a thought.
Okay.
You can
I'm
turn
sure
it along with
staff
the
will
things.
take a look and think about it and figure out, what is your, what don't you like about them?
The openness and free, it makes it feel more open to be in a place where we are trying to do a discussion.
Okay.
This was a little restriction, but which was good. It did its job.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Hey, Ira, have any final comments?
Not today, thank you.
Okay. Jules, you have any final comments?
Yes, I just want to thank SK for his emphasis on what's really important as we, for our, as board directors, and that is concern for the members' interests. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jules. SK, any final comments from you?
Oh, thank you, everybody. It's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. All right. Anything from you, Carlos?
Just very brief. The general manager's office is evaluating the partition situation here in the boardroom. So if there's any changes to be had, we'll of course bring it to the board's attention.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Michaela, anything you want to add? All right.
Just while you're looking at it, we still have several people in the building walking around wearing masks, people with a little discomfort. There still is a new booster for the vaccine that was approved for people of an age, and as the board is. And so it's restrictive in one way, but we get to see through it and do things, and perhaps while it is diminished, the problem isn't really gone. And so as a healthcare provider, I'm not uncomfortable with leaving them here a little while longer.
Nor am I.
Well, and just with the regular flu and the regular flu
Yeah.
season,
Yeah.
us being so close to each other, it might be a good idea.
Well, and what's
To
interesting...
keep them.
Yeah, no, what's interesting is, usually with things like the common cold, et cetera, we have a certain level of immunity. So we get a cold, we don't get very sick. But people haven't been getting sick with those things because we've been either isolated or very careful. So we may get a little sicker if we get those things. And so it's just may not be time, although eventually it will.
That was
Can I
my
make a
comment.
comment?
I said if it is diminished or almost gone, so they have to do the review. This was just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's great. I thought I heard it is diminished, so.
It is diminished or almost gone, yes.
All right. Okay, it
Can
looks
I
like
make a
Jules and
comment?
SK may have some comments, so we'll start with SK this time.
Yes. Yeah. in fact, I do contract the COVID-19. That is the reason I'm not here for people. So I think it's premature to remove petition at this point. I am not really sick, but a little bit uncomfortable. I'm taking medication. So this afternoon meeting, I will coming in with the Zoom. So please do not remove the petition yet.
Okay. Hope you get
Thank
better
you.
soon.
Yep. Thanks
Yeah.
for thinking of us and working from home today.
Yes.
And Jules, did you have a final comment? I see your hand raised.
Actually, I apologize for not removing my hand.
Okay.
Or taking
Nope.
it down, but I wanna also say I agree with SK and Donna. It's probably better to be safe than sorry.
Okay.
Good enough.
Thanks. See what happens, Kush? All right. I think here it is 12:04. Our business of our open meeting has now been completed. At this time, the monthly board meeting will recess for 20 minutes and reconvene to executive session at 12:25. Thanks to everybody who participated, and thanks for everybody for listening.
It's a miracle. We've done it all.